Hi, this is Ivan, and welcome to the channel. Tonight I have the pleasure of bringing Joe from Simstrumentation on. We're going to discuss a wide variety of topics. We're going to talk about Air Manager. We're going to talk about instruments that they make, a lot of stuff. So I'm looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. So let's go ahead and bring Joe onto the channel. Joe, hey, welcome to the channel.
Hey,
Thanks for taking your time to do this. I've been very excited about this. And thank you for being here.
oh, not a problem. I'm happy to be here.
Well,
Been
right off the
following
bat,
your channel for a while, so
well, that's
it's
awesome.
it's nice to be on it for a
It's been
change.
fun, and you know what? It's kind of weird. Over the past year or so, I've actually communicated with you in several different ways, not realizing that I was talking to the same person. Because you've got the Crunchmeister thing, and then Otto, and then you responding on some of the Facebook forums, and I've spoken with you in several contexts, and then I finally put it together
Yeah,
that this is the same guy that I've been talking to. So that's been really
yeah.
cool.
And plus that, my YouTube channel used to be Drunk Billy Flies
Yes,
previously, and I
yeah,
rebranded it, so that would have been another name yet to connect in there.
I think that was actually the first name that I was familiar with any of your work was as Drunk Billy Flies, and I got a big kick out of that. That was pretty awesome. And
For
I'm
those
gonna
that don't know, for those that don't know, the Drunk Billy Flies, it's based on a one-time Family Guy character.
nice.
He appeared in, as far as I know, in only one episode, and he's the Channel 5 newscopter pilot, and he's always drunk. So, and I picked a funny name just because, and that was it.
And I'm going to share something with you and everybody, and it's kind of embarrassing, and they may revoke my pilot's license and everything. I it I remember back in the day, without getting into how old we are, we probably saw Airplane when it first came out, and
Indeed.
um, I never put it together that Auto was a take on Auto. Autopilot was autopilot until just about a month ago. And so I think I just lost any credibility I have in any kind of simulation, aviation, or film community. So that one's kind of on me.
Yeah.
So anyway, what brought me to you, and what I think was is really cool about your work, and we'll talk about Air Manager, and for those of you that don't know, Air Manager is a great program. It's a paid program, and it allows you to emulate different instruments or entire panels in flight simulation. And it's a great program, and it's grown over the years as it's gotten more robust, and they've added more what's the word, it now works with Microsoft. Before it was mostly X-Plane, and now they've kind of updated some things, and they've allowed for third party people to write and produce instruments. And that's where you come in. Instrumentation, you guys have made some very compelling instruments that are awesome and have really opened up the different planes that are coming out, aircraft and whatnot. So tell me about that. Tell me how you guys got started. Was it hey, we're going to be the next big thing, or was this a small project that just kind of grew? How did it come about?
Well, I mean, they released the Air Manager 4.0 beta back not too long after Flight Simulator 2020 launched. Initially, there was a very, very, very slim collection of compatible instruments, and it was mostly, and even over the next couple of months as they started making more of their Siminovation's instruments compatible, it was still mostly just like standard gauges and stuff like that. So if somebody was flying steam gauge planes, their C172, 152, or something like that, steam gauge panel, you were probably okay. Your generic radios and stuff worked. But Microsoft Flight Simulator kind of took like a completely backward approach from other simulators that their staple was modern planes. So like right out of the gate, you had a simulator full of glass cockpits versus steam gauge planes. And there was nothing like that available for it. So initially, I was keeping an eye on it. It was like, okay, this could be good. It might not. I wasn't too sure. So I eventually got into installed the Air Manager, and it was like, okay. And a couple of guys on the forums had started. The first thing they did was made the G1000 frame compatible with Flight Simulator. So like, hey, that was cool. All of a sudden, we can use, the G1000 with Air Manager. So that did it for me. And then I guess I kind of got used to using it. And flying planes without it was just not the same anymore. It was just like, I can't do this. It's like the second I have to reach for a mouse or a keyboard to start entering functions on the plane, you've just shattered my sense of immersion in the simulator.
That's a great way to describe that, and you're absolutely correct. When 2020 launched, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 launched, I had some iPads and stuff like that, and I really, without realizing, I was just trying to go out of my way to not use the mouse or keyboard shortcuts. And you're right, I was all about the steam gauges and everything like that, but once I started flying the G1000, it really, I just, when we pilot, it's nice, everything's just right there. I'm assuming that immediately you guys started hearing from the community like, holy crap, keep going with that. You guys are bring them, give us more.
Well, it took us a while to get started. Like, I know the way I am. Once I start getting involved in something, I'm going to go head first into the deep end. And I mean, when, like, for example, when I started with Flight Simulator, like literally I had one of those cheap little Logitech HOTAS 1 or whatever for, Xbox 360 and PC compatible.
Sure.
And that was it. That and my PC. And I mean, now I've got behind me here, you can't really see very well, but I got my, the touch screens, like cockpit layout, 4 touch screens,
yeah, I'm counting
50-inch
like
TV.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that six panels I see total?
I have 5, the main screen plus the other 4 touch screens that are dedicated to the simulator. I have 1 monitor over there I kind of put like side stuff there, like Navigraph or whatnot, or other tools. And then I have 2 other monitors on this desk to my right side, your left, that are just my regular monitors from like my daily computer use.
Sure.
So it's like, so this has exploded. So what really got me, and I was kind of like sitting back, it's like, no, I'm not getting into this. I'm not getting into this. I'm not getting into this. I'm going to wait for other people to do this. I'm just going to wait for other people to do this. I don't even care if it's payware stuff. I'll just buy it because This is going to be extremely time consuming. And I already have other hobbies like my astrophotography, which takes up a lot of my time. So it's like, yeah, it's like, I'm not doing this. And then all of a sudden I tried the CJ4, and I really, really liked it. And I remembered a thread on the MSFS forum by another guy who had done a couple of Air Manager instruments for the CJ4. So I think he had the electrical switch panel, the pedestal starters, I think the autopilot and maybe a couple of other things. And he had used screen grabs from in the game to like generate the graphics for it,
Gotcha.
and it was but it was really cool. And here, like I was trying to, and there was a couple of them that were broken by one of the sim updates, but he's usually not very accessible in the summertime because he's busy with a zillion of other things, and this happened to be summertime of 2021. So it was like, okay, so I want to fly the CJ4. I really, really, really want to fly the CJ4. So I followed his lead, grabbed a bunch of screen grabs from the sim, and basically filled out the rest of the cockpit with very rudimentary but functional instruments.
Okay.
And then I fixed the ones that he built. And it's only when he came back in like about September or so that I got in touch with him. Well, I had messaged him and asked him, hey, can I fix your instruments? So he finally got back to me. And then, so Rob and I started talking and stuff. And it's like, we could probably do much better, like proper graphics and stuff like that. And so we decided to just kind of like start working on this and, make a proper CJ4. So, and of course, there's always, scope creep when you do something. So it started, okay, new graphics. Hey, I wonder if we could somehow do backlighting for them. So I started experimenting with stuff, layering graphics and stuff. It's like, hey, I got backlighting kind of working for it now. And then we started talking more scope creep. It's like, hey, I wonder if we could have some kind of instrument or something, or do something that would actually simulate ambient light dimming.
Oh, wow.
So when it gets dark, your panels get dark too. It's like nobody's done that in Air Manager yet. Well, I'll preface that. Others have done it, but nobody else had made this available to the public either for free or through payware.
Okay.
Like I know there were other people doing it, and there's a lot of guys that have been doing this like for X-Plane and P3D that have been doing it for years and have their own like horde of instruments that they keep to themselves.
Sure.
Because they don't want others copying their code, which I get. It's fine. It's like but like we were the first ones to jump out and do this. So like we started working on something. Initially we had a manual lighting control. Then we bumped into member number 3 of what eventually became Simstrumentation,
Okay.
which is Todd. And he's great guy, super smart, the man who will over-engineer everything to pieces. But the results are usually really good when he does.
Okay.
So, and he went and he added some code in there using weather station Lua script.
Wow.
Home weather station Lua script. So he pulled like, latitude, longitude, date, time, altitude, and a couple of other variables from the sim, plugged them into this to have it output what the ambient brightness should be.
Golly.
So now if you have this generic, if you look in, I don't know if you've played with the CJ4 or not at all, but if you add the extra instrument, it's under generic because it can be used for anything. It looks like a CJ4 knob, but it's called the ambient light dimmer.
Okay.
If you bring that into your panel and put it on auto, there's also a user property in there to hide it if you don't want to see it in your panel. It will actually send that signal, so any of our instruments that are compatible with the ambient light dimmer will actually dim completely at night.
Oh, that's
automatically.
I've messed around with that airplane. I'm on my personal kind of journey from smaller to bigger. And at the same time, my current goal is I'm going through an online instrument pilot course. I really want to learn how to do like true VAT sim and pilot edge. I do some pilot edge stuff for like just VFR stuff. And I would like to get to a point where I can do the bigger aircraft. And that's a good one because it's not like, it's not a Boeing and which is too big for me. So yeah, that's my next thing. That's why I was so happy that they released the Vision Jet for Microsoft,
Yeah.
because it's a great little stepping stone, you know. So
Hmm.
with is it the three of you, or is there four? Did it stop at three, or is there more than that?
For what? Sorry, I missed. Does what?
Is there three of you right now that are working on
There's
these?
four of us. There's four of
Four.
us. We picked up right as soon as we finished doing the CJ4. We picked up a fourth guy who's a graphic designer. He's also a pilot in real life, so that
Okay.
helps because we can throw things his way, sanity check wise. Is
Nice.
this how this is supposed to work? Because none of the other three of us are pilots, so
Okay.
you know we understand how things work in the simulator, but we also know that there are some simisms
Sure.
where things
Absolutely.
may not be like quite correct to 100% to real world. So it's nice to have somebody who's actually got like you know in instrument he's Dustin has just recently got his multi-engine
Oh
rating.
wow.
He's IFR rated, night rated, and all that. So he's a great guy, does great graphic work. He did our G1000 panels, the GMA 1347. He's done a bunch of the stuff in for a lot of our projects that we have. But anyway, I guess this is how we all got together as a group of like four of us. And it's like, well, let's start doing stuff. We have people here. So we started working on things like the TBM, mostly planes that are very specific and non-generic, because
Sure.
there's enough nowadays. There's enough generic stuff in Air Manager that you can set up a panel for almost any steam gauge plane, even if a gauge doesn't match the look and feel exactly of that plane. I
But
mean,
that's true in
it's
real life too, though,
you know,
because when a lot of these guys that have owned,
yeah,
you think about it, a lot of especially the general aircraft. I got a buddy of mine. He owns a Mooney. It was made in the '60s. I mean, it's as old as I am. I mean,
yeah,
it's almost 60 years old, and and basically over the years, these guys will take some instruments out. They'll put instruments in.
yep,
So they're hodgepodgey now because of that, and so I mean, you've got guys that probably have original
that,
stuff, so that makes perfect sense.
yeah.
Um,
And that's exactly that. That was kind of like my thinking pattern here when it came to that. Like just general planes, like don't really care as long as it's you know, uh, a turn coordinator's a turn coordinator.
sure.
It might not match the exact look and feel, but it's like you said, people switch things in planes, particularly old planes. They've been upgraded, they've changed their radios, changed their avionics. They might have pulled out their six pack and installed like a couple of G5s or something in there. So it's not that important, but it's like once you start getting into very specific planes, like something as simple as the Cessna 172 with G1000.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, you have three gauges, but we needed something that would work with it. Now, Sim Innovation did make their X-plane one compatible with Flight Simulator, which was nice, but it really looks old. Like it looks like the old original G1000s that came out like in what was it, I think 2005 they came out or
Okay.
something like that. And it's really bound to the limitations of within X-Plane. Like the volume knobs don't do anything. Well, in Microsoft they do.
No, your guys
And
that yours looks so much
the
better.
VNav, for example, didn't work in theirs. What else was there?
The audio panel, when you guys
I think
upgraded the audio panel, didn't you?
yeah, yeah, we did the audio, the GMA 1347. What else was there? Oh yeah, the logic that goes with the nose up, nose down buttons for flight level change in VS.
Okay.
Stuff like that didn't work quite right. I don't know if Sim Innovations have fixed that in theirs now. They may have, but at the time, the G1000 working title had just launched, the G1000 NXI, and we were finding there were issues with that panel. So it's like, well, let's just build our own. We're going to make it look good. We're going to make it look like a modern G1000 NXI versus the old original OG G1000, you know, including the lighting around the knobs that comes on when your avionics are powered on, like
Sure.
nice little, just like little visual touches like that. And
Have
so,
you
and
guys
then, yeah, we've jumped. Oh, go ahead.
have you guys ever, in the course of working this stuff up, has there, just out of curiosity, have the Sim Innovation guys ever, has there been any communication
Oh, yeah.
with you guys?
Yeah, yeah. Ralph is actually, I've been on the Sim Innovation forum for quite a while. Ralph actually is on our Discord server, so we've
Okay.
had some chats with him there too. I've spoken with him. We've had some lengthy conversations with Russ Barlow, who was one of the guys who built
Yeah.
a lot of the instruments for Sim
Sure.
Innovations in the first place, invented the Knobster. Like, so he's a member of ours there. I chat with him occasionally as well. He's a
I
great
mean,
guy.
I can't help but wonder if there's a lot of people, and with some of the recent videos I've posted and the chat that I've seen, you know, when Microsoft did release the Vision, and you know the TBM's been out for a while, and then you guys are doing this very specific work, and I can't help but wonder if it's kind of like, dang, there are people buying Air Manager because of your work. I mean, I'm not trying
Yeah.
to minimize anything that they do, but I hope they recognize what you guys do, because I mean, I have no numbers to back that up, but I'm assuming that there's some element of accuracy with that.
If I had a commission for every WiMAXit monitor, or even now the planar monitors that I've influenced people to sell, I would probably have more sim gear behind me.
Yeah, I got that 100% from you. I picked up a couple of planners. I had a WiMAX that I think, isn't that what Russ uses? Did he have
Yeah.
a WiMAX? So I saw his video. I picked up a WiMAX, and then I couldn't find a second one. And so I ended up picking up a couple of UPerfect 13.3s. And I did a
Okay.
really nice build with that, and they fit really nicely on top of the honeycomb stuff. Those 13.3s fit
Yeah.
really nice, and you can see over the monitor. I have a setup similar to yours where I've got a bigger, I have a TV. It's not a
Hmm.
computer, it's just a TV. And I'm looking
Yeah.
over my monitors or I'm looking over my panels, touch panels at the monitor. And those 13.3s on top of the honeycomb stuff was awesome. Having said that, they are crazy tiny, and it
Yeah.
almost defeated the purpose of the touch part of it. I ended up using my mouse as much as I did my finger, because I've got kind of fat, chubby fingers, and I'm trying to, right. I got these
Yeah. Same.
banana hands, and I'm trying to press these little buttons, and I couldn't do it. So I was thinking about, man, do I go back to the 15.6? And then I saw your planner monitors, and I was like, oh, and so, and so I picked those up, and those things are
Yeah.
awesome, man. They are awesome.
Yeah.
They sit on the ground or on my
Yes,
desktop.
that's the best part. That kickstand that they sit flat on the desk. You
Hmm.
can adjust their angle back and forth, so that's so you don't have any stands rising them. They're awesome, and it's like I had told you in that Facebook message. They came to my attention when I watched a video clip from the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, and I saw the planar monitors in front of them, and I saw this monitor with a kickstand, and I thought, and to me, I that's what drew my attention, not what was happening in the video. And
Sure.
then I saw him reach scrolling on the monitor, and I'm like, "What are those touch monitors?"
Right.
And I went and looked them up right away, and it's like, "Yes, they are." Went off to Amazon. Two, please, thank you.
Nice. And they're perfect because even though they sit on the
Yep.
ground, for me, they're twice as big as those 13.3s. They're 22-inch for if you guys are wondering, who are listening to this
Mhm.
right now. And they're touch, and they're heavy. So you can press
Yeah.
on them. They're not mounted. Their mine aren't mounted to anything. They're just sitting on the thing, but I can press on them. They don't move, and they're lower. They're even lower so I can see more of the screen in front of me. So they're just, I mean, they're perfect. They really are perfect. So now I think I'm going to do like you did. I'm going to take my 13.3s and I think I'm going to lay one flat on my desk and make it an additional touch screen for
Yep, the
different.
center console pedestal type
Yeah.
thing. That's what I use the one for, and then I have the other one that's over to the side. I'll use that one for, you know, I I have a few planes where there's even more than I can fit on the 222 inches.
Okay.
So I'll put like a switch panel off to the side there or something if I have to. I could get by without that one, but that pedestal one, I really, really like having
And is that where you
that
put
one there.
your FMS? Is that where that goes? Is that how you have that set
Yep.
up? Yeah.
Like
When I,
for the Vision Jet, I have the autopilot and my auto throttle
okay.
panel down there, and my fuel selector, so that they're, relatively speaking, in the positions that they would be in the real thing. Same thing with like the the CJ4. Now the CJ4, actually, I put the FMS on my right screen. On
Okay.
that, I just have the starters and all the lighting panels that would be on the pedestal.
How long does it take you guys? I mean, do GitHub is you have your instruments up on GitHub, and I'll put the
Mhm.
information below for the address, but it's www.simstrumentation.com, and that will take you to your GitHub site. And
Yep.
your instruments are just constantly new versions. You're updating them as you go, or are they finished and you move on to the next one? How does that work? What's your guys' process?
It's a bit of everything. There aren't many projects where we've all been buried in on the same projects. The CJ4 was mostly Rob and I, and then Todd, when we brought in the ambient lighting stuff, he added that to it. Stuff we did after that, it was a little bit of Rob, a little bit of myself, and then we get Dustin to do the graphics for us because he was way better at it than I was. I mean, I've got 10 years of using Photoshop for photo editing, not for graphic design and drawing. So my skills in it are a little bit more limited, I guess. Although I have to say now I'm drawing like a I'm drawing like a beast in Photoshop. I've learned how to do it properly. I've learned more in the last 6 months now than I have in the last 10 years of using it.
Wow.
So like I did, Dustin did the GTC 580 and the G3000 in the Vision Jet, but I basically did like the rest of it. A couple of them are Russ Barlow's instruments that have been updated, his
Okay.
X-Plane ones. I think the flap selector. There was, what's the point really of changing that when it works? Like Russ wanted to do it. Like I was having a chat with Russ and he wanted to do it. And he's like, but I won't be able to do it for a little while. I said, oh, that's okay. If you don't mind, I can just do it. He's like, yeah, go ahead. So I went ahead.
Well,
So that
clearly,
one was mostly me. Same thing with the Kodiak. It's because I'll say this: we're very generous with giving our stuff away, but end of the day, our instruments are produced out of selfishness because we produce them for ourselves.
right.
It's like, hey, I
That makes
like this
sense.
plane. I want to fly this plane. Oh, you like them too? Come on board, like the Cessna 414, for example. I don't know if you've had any contact with that plane, but it's outstanding.
I have
Probably the
not.
closest thing to a study level, you know, twin in the sim so far. It's a fantastic aircraft.
I did get on
Um,
the Kodiak. You mentioned the Kodiak. I just started with that, and I'm going to
yep.
be honest with you. That plane, for me anyway, has been a bear to even fly. I'm having some problems with it. The trim on it's all weird. You got to do things that I have not had to do. And everybody's like, watch that missionary
Yep.
pilot channel. Fly it.
Yep.
But
That's like literally how I learned how to fly the Kodiak. Is I watched his videos, I saw his procedures, saw how things were happening. It's like, oh, okay. And but yeah, like when that plane came out, like I immediately like took a liking to it, and it's like, hey, we need instruments for this, and nobody else, none of the other three guys had the plane, so it's like, well, you know what? It's up to me.
Well,
I'll do
it's
this one.
I can't wait to I'm going to get it figured out. I'm going to get it figured out. Well, in case nobody has told you, let me just say on behalf of the community, we appreciate your work. It's good work, and I like the idea that you guys are. I mean, I think you guys should at least put a donate button up. I looked for one, I couldn't find one, but
No,
I appreciate
we ask
that.
people who want to donate to come to our Discord
Okay,
and boost our Discord channel.
I'm on
That's
it.
what we ask people to do.
I'm on it. We'll put the
Yeah.
Discord link in below,
Yeah.
and hell,
We're at almost 1,000 people in our Discord now.
I'll be 1,001 by the end of the day.
Pretty vibrant little community overall. There's a lot of people that share their instruments there too. We have a share your instruments
Okay.
channel on there, and people will come in and they're more than happy. Like there's this one guy who has taken on the Herculean task of converting the fly-by-wire A320 instrument set to work with the Phoenix A320.
Okay.
And Phoenix is not easy to work with because they go out of their way to obfuscate all their variables and stuff. It's like technically it's part of their user agreement. You're not going to use this to hook up to home cockpit equipment. Yet on the same site, they have an example of how to use their LVARs to hook into home cockpit equipment. It just, I don't get it. But it's not our stuff, but we have a guy there who's done it, and he's sharing, a link to his stuff. We have like people who've like done other stuff, like for various other planes, the DA-62. I'm trying to think what else. The Citation Mustang, like various other stuff that people have just like built for themselves, and they're like, hey, here you go, you guys can have this too. So it's been a great response. Like I had considered early on, after Rob and I had eventually settled on doing this, like this teamwork thing, and we were trying to come up for a name, and we're doing sim instrumentation, and I'm known for amongst my friends for like taking two words and clobbering them together like German style and having one compound word, with usually some kind of funny connotation. Not in this case. So it's like, hey, Simstrumentation. And Rob liked the idea, and that's how we took off with it. But that was a tangent. Where was I going with this?
How long? So you clearly are very knowledgeable about the different planes. How long have you been doing flight sim stuff in general? I mean, what was your first flight sim that you can remember that you spent any real time with?
This is most of what I know is since Microsoft Flight Simulator came out. Now, that said, my first flight simulator was on my very first PC in 1993, my little 386 DX40, and it was Falcon 3.0 by Spectrum Holobyte.
Okay.
And I remember this thing came with a manual like this thick, and I sort of like probably didn't learn to fly the plane as well as I should have, but good enough that I could go places and shoot stuff and drop bombs on people and
Okay.
stuff like that. I remember trying an ill-acquired version of Flight Sim 95, and I thought that it was cool, but civil aviation sims really didn't do it for me at the time
Okay.
because so you took off of this, bad graphic airport over bare landscape, you know, dotted with a few trees or something here and there, and you had nothing until you got to a destination where you had another badly rendered, airport where you landed at, and that was it. And to me, like part of like the civil aviation thing was like, hey, you get to see places and see things that you haven't seen before.
Right.
So it was like, yeah, this is not doing it. Like combat flight sims at the time, yeah, it was same thing graphic wise, but at least there was a point. Like you take off from an airfield, you were in the air blowing stuff, other stuff, or you'd have ground targets somewhere that you'd go to drop bombs on, and then go back to your base. So it wasn't like 2 hours of flying over, barren territory with nothing. So it never managed to get my interest. I remember trying again with Flight Sim 98, I think it was, and I think Flight Sim 9. I don't think I ever tried FSX.
I was
And I remember trying at some point one of the versions of X-Plane as well.
I
And it
did some
was,
of the
and to me,
original.
this was it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, to me, this was the thing, is that it just, none of them managed to capture my attention. And I remember saying back in like 1993 or 1995, talking to a buddy of mine who actually really liked Flight Sim 95. Actually, I had gotten a copy from him, and he and I was like, it's probably going to take another 20 to 30 years before the technology has caught up where we have a rendering of the world.
And you were
So when,
close.
and I was pretty close,
Yeah.
25,
Yeah.
close enough. When I saw that, through the grapevine, I knew, FSX had been kind of like abandoned, and it was shelved and stuff. And I remember watching videos and saying, nope, it's not there yet.
Right.
It's not there yet. And then I remember watching the first promo videos when they first went public with Flight Sim 2020. And I'm looking at that, I'm like, oh, they finally did it.
Well, they did a
They
really good
finally did
job
it.
with those
Yep.
early promos with the music and the good cuts and all that. I started with Microsoft back in the 80s on a 286.
Yeah.
I aspired to a 386, and I back when it was Meigs Field, and there was like the skinny skyscraper, and then I kind of got away from it, and then I came back at FSX, and I think I had my first version of X Plane, I think was 10, but I really did more FSX stuff. And I was like you, I had a little simple HOTUS symptom. It was the I can't remember which one it was. It was super plasticky. I think probably cost like $40 for both pieces, the throttle and the joystick, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of helicopter stuff in the original. When I first started flight simming, I don't even remember the program. I don't know if it was Microprose or one of those guys. It was like the Apache something helicopter attack thing,
Possibly.
that's what I spent
Yeah.
more time on that. And I thought, and you're right, the combat part of it was great. It had a lot of the flying through the valley stuff, and that would have been in the early 90s when they were doing that. And I was on a
Yeah.
couple of sub simulators too that I really liked. But yeah, and then all of a sudden, Microsoft came out, and when they closed down, I was super disappointed, but I wasn't so into it that I was crushed. Just like, oh, okay. And then I
Yeah.
kind of lost track of it. And then when they announced for 2020, I think we had talked about this before. I didn't find out about till 2020 being released until like a month and a half before it was released. So I think they came out with those first trailers like a year or announced a year earlier.
Yeah.
And then, so I didn't have
I
to
think it
wait
was in
forever.
January. I think it was in January 2020 that I signed up for their forum initially because I had found out about it, and they were taking applications for beta testing.
Okay. Were you a beta
So I
tester?
applied for it. No, I didn't get in, unfortunately, but it's like I wish I would have, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad. I mean, there was a large enough collection of bugs to deal with in the first year of the sim being launched that I can just imagine what pre-release was like.
I was
I mean, there's still bugs in it
surprisingly
that we're dealing with it today.
I was surprisingly blessed with not having to experience a lot. Maybe it was because I was sticking to the Cessna and I wasn't really using. I could from the beginning. I mean, I bought day one, and
Yeah.
I think I have had like maybe knock on wood, maybe four crash to desktops. You know, and I, when they first came out, they didn't support right away. They didn't support the Logitech panels, and
Yeah.
X-Plane, you know, was just fine. But other than that, and I think you could do SPAD next right away, and then Moby Flight. And I think you're familiar with Moby Flight. I've seen, and
Yeah.
and I didn't know anything about it. Once
Had
they
a
started,
couple. We had a couple of instruments at first that required Moby
that's
Flight to
right.
work, like the because there was the variables weren't exposed through SimConnect, so you had to have that extra Moby Flight layer in the background to talk to the sim via the API directly.
Right.
So there were a few at the time that were Moby Flight dependent.
Did you ever mess with and it's a different kind of layer. It may and I can't remember the name of it. Something seven something I can't for the life of me I can't remember it. There's a company called Remote Flight. I don't know if you ever saw. They made some instruments on iOS. Gorgeous, gorgeous instruments.
Yeah.
I don't think that developer has updated any of that stuff for forever, but it worked. It worked with Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now there weren't a lot. I want to say this guy had, I don't know if it was just one person or a group of people, but I want to say this guy had a dozen or so instruments. He had a G1000 bezel that didn't work very well. I don't think it worked at all. But the six pack and just basic analog gauges, they were top notch. But you had to use them with an iPad. And that's what got me to Air Manager. And then Air Manager is what got me to you guys. And so it was a little bit of a step, but I didn't experience. I've got a whole lot of bugs with Microsoft. I've got a home built machine. I haven't bought a pre-built machine in decades, since my Tandy 286. I've always built my own. And
Yeah.
yes, everybody, I'm old, but I just didn't have a lot of problems with the software. And I saw, I was aware of it. I've been in the forums since the beginning and I was aware of it. And I don't tell people it's in your imagination and all that kind of stuff. But there was a little bit of ugliness out there about some of the stuff. And I was just like, well, guys, hold on. These guys are doing something, to me, unprecedented. They're a program with, just a tremendous amount of data being streamed to your computer. Wonderful graphics, I guess, when it works, which for me has been, almost all the time. And, nobody else has done that. I'm still an X-Plane fan. And I tell you, the day that Microsoft gets the left turning tendencies right on the Cessna, I'm probably done
Yeah.
with the X-Plane. With X-Plane, I hate to say that, because it's a great program, but it is hard. It is really hard to do an X-Plane session. I'm not trying to come down on X-Plane, but then go to Microsoft and
Mhm.
and the eye candy. And for people out there that are like, well, it's not about the eye candy, it's about the flight physics. I agree. If that's what you're about, if it's about the flight physics, then please don't listen to me. This is just for me, like you make your instruments for you. I'm just talking about me, but
Yeah.
it's really hard. I mean, there's a Vision Jet I'm pretty sure there's a Vision Jet in
Yeah.
X-Plane.
Yeah, because that's what I based our instruments on, was from Russ Barlow's instruments for it.
Like I said, if they get those left turn tendencies figured out, I'll agree with the community in general that the flight physics is marginally better on on X-plane, but
Yeah.
when you've got
I have no problems with that at all. I I'm not an X-plane user, but there are enough people who are actually pilots that'll do both side by side and say, okay, yeah, the planes feel better here. There are certain things now, especially with the computational fluid dynamics and new prop simulations and stuff. There's things that Asobo actually does better in the flight department. But the key thing is that ground handling in Microsoft is atrocious at times. They've got some issues with ground friction. You shouldn't be able to sit there and basically have your airplane spun around because you have a 5 knot crosswind. Like I'm not even a pilot and I know this. Like it just boggles my mind that they can't get this, that when people tell Asobo this during Q&As, that they get the deer in the headlights look in their eyes. It's like, whoa, it works just like it should in real life. It's like, yeah, well, you have like a ton of pilots telling your game developers that it doesn't.
Do you fly
Like,
any of the helicopters? Do you spend any time in the helicopters?
I haven't in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I have a VR headset. I don't particularly like it for Microsoft, but I did some flying at Aerofly FS with it, and I was having a blast flying helicopters.
When they
It's
added
really hard, but it was fun. But I haven't tried any in Flight Simulator yet.
helicopters, there was this weird. It worked great for some people, but for some people, like me, so like I said, I didn't experience a whole lot of crash to desktops, but I had this weird issue where you'd get in the helicopter, and it was unflyable, absolutely 100% unflyable. The helicopter would do this thing where it would start to. Have you ever seen that video of the bridge with the sympathetic vibration and it does this until it collapses? So the helicopter would start like this, and then it would do like this, and then it would fall over. And you go to the forums and you put that out, and everybody was like, "Well, you're flying it wrong. You're definitely flying it wrong." And I'm like, "Well, gosh." So I could go to X-plane. I'd fly a helicopter, not great, but I could fly it.
Yeah.
And then I'd get in the Microsoft thing and it'd start with this. Now I'm not talking about the high performance group and the company that made the Bell 40, is it the 47G? They made their own flight physics thing. They just adapted the plane, did something. I'm not sure what they did. They're great helicopters, but they're flyable. And when Microsoft released, they weren't flyable. This kept going on. And I finally was like, this is nuts. This is, and I saw a video of this guy flying the helicopter and saying that he wasn't even touching the throttle and it was flying smooth. And I'm like, well then, so I tried that and it didn't work. Well, they come to find out there was some kind of bug with the flight model. And there was this trick you could do. I didn't figure this out. But I did put the word out and put a video up and got a lot of comments on it of people just like, basically you had to flip the flight model and do this thing, exit out, go back in, reload the new flight model from like legacy to modern, and it fixed it. Completely fixed it.
Okay.
So that was some weirdness. But then the reason I even bring this up, I go off on these tangents too.
Yeah.
When they added helicopters,
I do that all the time.
When they added helicopters, they added helipads, right? And so there's one in New York City, that's real popular. And I invite you to
I've seen a lot of videos of it.
And there'll be a ton of people there.
Onto the water there.
There'll be a Cessna or a plane, and it'll hover. And it's clearly, I'm positive that the person flying is flying a helicopter, but it's translated to my screen as an airplane. So they'll bring in a Cessna or whatever, some little small general aviation.
Bonanza often happens.
And it'll just sit there and hover, and it'll do like this, and it'll land like straight down, and it's a Cessna. So yeah, they don't have all the bugs worked out. That's for sure. But to tie this back into what you guys do, when you're in these planes and these aircraft, and you're looking at these instruments, it just works. I mean, it just really works. And when you guys updated the G1000, that was, man, that was a great day. When you guys in work in progress was doing they're beefing up the actual software part of it, and then you guys released your bezel. And dang, I mean, I was sitting there talking about, I hope Sim Innovations realizes what you guys have done for them. I hope Microsoft realizes what you guys have done for them, because that bezel that you guys came up with looks great, works great, and just 100% adds to the immersion of that aircraft. And I'm a little bit selfish, because up until the Vision Jet came out, 90% of my time was spent in the 172. And that's the, have you seen or heard of the Airfoil Lab 172? The
I've
Digital?
heard of the for X-Plane, right?
Yeah. It reminds me, so when I first started flying the Kodiak in Microsoft, it does something that X-Plane planes do, the study level. They're hard to start. It's hard to start, and that's awesome. It should be, because planes don't always start. I mean, I have a private pilot license. I just fly a little Cessna. I don't have a ton of hours. It's a G1000, and it's equipped with G1000. It's a standard Cessna otherwise, and it doesn't always start. If you don't start it right, it won't start. And that's true with some of these study level aircraft, and it's certainly true with that Kodiak. Do you guys have any big projects coming up?
We don't have any big projects, so I guess that gets it. But since you brought up the Cessna 172, have you tried the WB Sim steam gauge 172 mod for
Is that the way
Flight Simulator?
It adds a lot of, correct me if I'm wrong. I just saw a video about this. This came out, a couple of months ago, right? Give or take.
Yes, correct.
And it adds a lot of features and functions. And I was looking at it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Does it do anything to the flight physics, and does it affect the startup procedure?
Flight physics, I can't remember if they added the CFD model to it or not.
Okay.
I know that was planned. I can't remember if they did or not, but
I think Microsoft already did that.
Not to the steam gauge version. They only did it to the G1000 version.
Oh, okay.
So the computational fluid dynamics is only on the G1000 version.
Okay.
So if you fly the two planes, they handle very differently now. Whereas they used to feel the same, other than what you saw on your dashboard inside.
Okay.
They felt the same. Now they feel very different. So I was lucky. I got pulled in. One of my friends is actually he was one of the part developers on it. So he basically redid the entire electrical system of the plane.
Oh wow.
Including like all the fuses and everything. Like they gutted the electrical system because it was just not right. It appears right from the user perspective, but for how it's really supposed to work, not so much. Like Jeff's been he's even older than I am. And literally he had his PPL back when I was in diapers.
Wow.
So and he's flown C-72s his entire life. So, this gentleman knows his stuff when it comes to the 172s. So he was also a big hand in them redoing the Cap 140 autopilot to make it work like the real one should, versus the Asobo-isms and the one that's default in the sim. But one of the things they added was a lot of engine stuff, including wear and tear on the engine. So you got to check your oil, you got to make sure. Awesome. And you can actually flood your engine
which
If it's
happens.
cold out, yep, if it's cold out, you're going to have a hard time cranking that over. You can kill your battery. If you hold your starter too long, you're going to see smoke start coming out from under the cowl. They've got you know, if you land it too hard, you can break your nose gear off and actually crash it. They've done a lot of nice little touches to it. It's quite nice. I actually enjoy flying it. I was lucky enough that I got into like some of the later beta testing of it
Oh wow.
before it released, and it's like I don't care. I am buying this the day you release it. It's
Well,
like
now I'm going to go try
even
it out. And
yeah,
it
it's like it's really reasonably priced. The only I mean it's a mod. You have to have the premium deluxe version of the
right.
sim with the P1000 or the the Steam Gauge variant. But it's a mod from he sells it. I think the only place it's available is on JustFlight.com.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's that they did a fantastic job on this thing.
No,
It's
that's
like I was
awesome.
so happy to see that. It was like such a great little realism boost that you're not guaranteed. You're like the very first time I was on Discord with Jeff, and when he sent me the first beta build that came my way, and it's like, and I flooded it.
Well,
Can't get this thing started, man. And
that's
there were
one of
so
the
many
things.
complaints on the forum the first day that they launched. The same thing. It's I can't get it started. My, it won't. I've tried starting it for several minutes and now it won't crank over. That's because you flooded it and you killed your battery.
That's how I was with that Kodiak. It was like I'm like, what is that weird sound, and why won't this plane start? And then I realized, then I read, oh, you just totally fried your engine, and you got to exit out and come back in to get it to work, and all the and but I like that when you do that, and what makes that cool is having the additional screens and having the knobs and the switches in front of you and the instruments and the panels make that just a lot more fun. And you sit down in your chair and you get everything up, and when you start going through, and that's what makes it fun. Not that it's not fun once you get off up in the air and all that kind of stuff. Are you on any of the, I mean, if you fly some of the bigger planes, are you good with like the IFR stuff, or do you do VATSIM at all? Are you on any of that kind of?
I don't do airliners. I'm not an airliner guy at all. I prefer GA planes, although I have I typically lower altitude. Although the Cessna 414 and the Vision Jet have really taken me to new heights, quite literally.
Yeah.
The CJ4 was what I enjoyed when I wanted to do like a longer flight up at high altitude. I really enjoyed the CJ4 for it, and that's get I don't know. Have you looked into the aircraft and avionics update one that's coming out like in a couple of weeks?
But so are you on the beta for Microsoft?
Yes.
See,
Yeah.
so educate me on this. I have heard that, and they have said that they can't guarantee if you're on beta and then they release. Does that is it possible that you may have to do a complete reinstall, or is that not accurate?
Not exactly. Where the problem comes, this is strictly a Microsoft Store problem. So the Steam version, which I have personally, so it's not an issue for me. If you have your entire sim is installed to its default location,
Okay.
if you are in the beta and you leave the beta, you will. There's a good chance that you're going to have to reinstall the entire sim for either it will delete your entire community and official folders like automatically in the background doing
Okay.
this, or you're going to end up with problems where really the only way to back out of it is to uninstall. That said, they started I think with sim update 10 or 11. I can't remember which one they started with. um, Now you no longer have to leave the beta. So
Okay.
once they release, they re- the beta branch gets the same final build that the public is going to get,
Oh.
like about usually the week before. So we get that final build, and that's what everybody else is going to get. And if we back out of the beta, there's nothing to reinstall or roll back on because it's the same thing as far as it's concerned.
Well,
And
now you got me
will
interested.
automatically be included in the next beta as it rolls out like later on.
Okay. Well, now you
So
got me interested. So I know there's a big avionics component to it, which I think is funny
huge.
because a lot of the X-plane folks that it's flight physics and avionics. Well, I kind of feel like with work in progress doing what they've done, that, like I said, they're just slowly eroding. Any of the they're mitigating any lead that X-plane may have. Not that they have a lead in market, but a lead in the seriousness of it.
In the hardcore simmers,
Right.
yeah, definitely they have a lead there.
So what else is going
Oh
on
yeah,
with that update?
the G3000.
Okay.
Well, put it this way: the what they did with the G1000 NXI is essentially what they're doing with the G3000 now.
Okay.
So I don't know if you noticed, they also released like recently their GNS 530 430 update,
No, that I did not know.
and now they're working on the G3000. Now, the default G3000 in the sim was kind of trash.
Okay.
It really wasn't very good at all. It was barely functional. It offered maybe 20% of the functionality that you could get out of the real thing, maybe. And of that 20%, probably about 50% of that was buggy and
Okay.
didn't work right because their flight planner and the navigation system in the background didn't work right. So when Working Title released their G3000, like a few months after they did their original G1000, that was a huge upgrade for people who flew the TBM and the Longitude at the time, because like it added a ton of functionality. It was still a slave to the the navigation and flight planning system that's at the core of the sim, but its functionality was huge. Like, it was a huge leap. I mean, well, you fly the Vision Jet, so that is a modified version of the last version of the Working Title G3000, that they've added extra pages and stuff
Okay.
to it for the Vision Jet. But it's essentially the Working Title one. Well, that's a huge leap over the basic version in the sim. Well, this new one here is as huge a leap up over their previous work as their previous work was over the sim.
Now, when that
It's just a
happens,
monumental gap.
does that end up triggering any kind of update from you guys, or is that? I mean, I know that they do
Yes.
that, so it does. Okay, it does.
Oh yeah. There were a lot of really, really badly coded things in the planes. The TBM being one of them. The CJ4 was one of them. The Working Title mod, they had fixed a lot of stuff in it, in their version of it, that our instruments were for. But it still was, it had some Asobo-isms in it that you had to deal with and stuff. This kind of like guts the navigation system out and replaces it with the same thing we've got in the G1000 NXI. When it comes to the cockpit and the interfacing, they've standardized a bunch of the input events
Okay.
and variables used to control parts of the plane. So that's required some changes on a lot of changes on the CJ4. We actually have the entire CJ4 suite. The one that's on our GitHub has been updated now for the new update coming up.
Oh,
We'll
that's
be
awesome.
submitting them to Sim Innovation to have them included in the store once the update launches. We've done the same thing for the G3000 stuff. Like, I just finished a few days ago, I think last week, I just redid the autopilot panel for the TBM. It had a lot of functions that didn't work. Like,
Okay.
the bank switch didn't work.
Sure.
You couldn't do the transfer co-pilot to pilot side and stuff like that. So all this stuff has been added and now works correctly. They've standardized a bunch of the variables. Funny enough, a lot of those variables were there, and the TBM wasn't built to that standard.
Okay. That doesn't.
Strangely enough,
That's weird.
so, so like if you try to use the GTC 580s currently that you're using in the Vision Jet,
Right.
they won't work with the default TBM. They will work with the new TBM though.
Okay. Okay.
So, and before you used to only be able to pop out one of the GTCs out of the TBM, and the left and right one were mirrors of each other,
Right.
making like the second one almost useless to be there. Well, now they are two independent ones, and that user property I have in the 580 or position 1, 2, 3, you actually have to use that 1 and 2 for the TBM as
Oh, that's
well.
awesome.
So they've got a lot of stuff like that that's triggered us to have to update a lot of our stuff for those planes in the background.
So, of the four of you, are you the primary coder, or do you guys all do it a little bit? Who's
Three. Okay, Rob is strictly coding. Uh, Todd is coding, but he also does some 3D modeling. We have Dustin, who's all graphics. He's dabbled a little bit in the coding, but he's not a coder. He's a graphic designer
Okay.
and stuff. And I'm kind of like the jack of all trades.
Gotcha?
I'm just, I'm a programmer for a living, so this stuff is just okay. So it's a different language to learn, which is much simpler than most of the other stuff I've worked with. So, and same thing now, graphics and stuff. I've gotten better at that, but yeah. So I mean, we all have a hand in everything. Although we do have for the Aerosoft CRJ, we have an entire suite of instruments for that as well.
Okay.
And I was actually not involved in that one. That was Rob, Dustin, and we had another guy that came in and did a bunch of 3D modeling for us. He actually works like in film doing CGI stuff. So he came up with he came up with the switches and the knobs. He made this thing just look amazing.
Now that
So
was
anybody who likes flying regional jets, the Aerosoft CRJ, we've got like the full suite for that has the back dimming as well, just like the CJ4. Yeah, it looks and works really great.
Wasn't that the first plane that was kind of like the first study level plane? It's like $50 or something,
Yeah.
and Aerosoft put it out.
It was near, I'd say near study level. It's really really well modeled and in depth from what I've seen of others, and others have flown it. Like Dustin likes flying it. We got a couple of guys on our Discord that fly it and that they really really enjoy it. It's got a lot more depth than anything else they've flown in Microsoft so far. So
have you
they
flown
really enjoy it.
have you tried the PMDG DC6?
I have not.
It's ridiculous. I've got it. It's great. It's a great looking plane. You should check it out. I mean, it's not free, of course, and they've got a reputation for being detailed and.
Oh yeah.
But it is definitely, it's next level for sure. And I got it all excited and I sat down in it and I was like, no. It's not. It's too complicated for me, man. So I'm just going to sit in it, look around, and go, "Ah, this is cool." But
there's a reason why planes back then used to have crews of like 3, sometimes 4 people to fly them. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, a
like
guy that just
modern
did.
avionics are amazing because they've condensed everything down to simple displays that can give you all the information that you need. That prior you needed giant panels of gauges to get, and like it's made single pilot operation of what would be fairly complex aircraft. Like business jets are they can be very complex aircrafts, but at the same time they've been distilled down and simplified to the fact that they're certified for single pilot operation.
Yeah,
it's great.
I love it that they call the Vision the flying iPad, because that's basically
Yeah, I know. And you look at it, and it's like, okay, yep, it's like nothing but screen. Like, the only things that are physical switches are the things that you like really need to be physical switches. Other than that, it's touch the screen,
There's I don't
and
know
you're
who
good
he
to
is.
go.
I've never met him, but where I live, there's a small airport. It's not towered. It's kind of tiny. They have a little flight school there, and they have a really good, well-known aviation mechanic there, and so people bring their planes in from all over to be worked on. But there's somebody, he's been there more than once, so I don't know what he does, but he has a Vision jet, or he's the pilot, or a crew or something. I don't know if he's like a regional thing, just small charter that takes people around, but it's gorgeous. I mean, when you see them in real life, they're just gorgeous. So yeah, well, gosh, Joe, I appreciate the time that you've put in tonight, and I would love to do this again. Maybe have to get together again and review planes or something. But
Sure, I would absolutely. I'd love to have another chat with you. This was very enjoyable. Now,
I'm going to say it again. Just I appreciate the work you guys do, and I'm doing my best to put the word out. And I like that there's all these third party people working on Microsoft and X-Plane too. And I like it that you guys are talking to each other. That benefits people like me who
mm,
who don't know programming, which is weird because back in the day I could program in Pascal and Fortran and Basic. But I it's just I don't
you'd
have the
probably do fine in Lua,
I just
but it's
don't
the
have the
time.
patience. It's the patience. It's just so I'd rather sit instead of going over my bad buggy code, I'd rather sit and fly, for a little bit. And I don't have the
Yeah,
eye or the patience to go back and debug my own stuff. And so
I
the last time
understand.
I did any serious coding was I built a couple of Hackintosh machines, but that wasn't really coding. I was just cutting and pasting other people's code from the internet. And you know what, though? I had a really nice Hackintosh for a while. So there's that. But
Well,
Joe, I'm
what
going
you
to
were
say,
saying about instruments and stuff, just before you go,
sure.
I'm going to toss this in here.
No, do.
There have been like I said, from us, like a lot. We got like a couple of hundred like different like instruments now that we've made for Air Manager. So the library of free stuff is growing. Like there's going to be once the Vision Jet with the updated new G3000s is launched, it's probably going to take a couple of months for them to get that happening. Like the Vision Jet stuff we're submitting to the store. There's a couple of other things that we're submitting to the community store. But there's a lot of upcoming stuff too that will be premium payware panels coming up for specifically Flight Simulator. The first one came out. It's by guy Tony. He runs the Experimental Sim Avionics YouTube channel,
Okay.
and it's like all centered around Air Manager. And he's just rolled out a Cessna 414 payware panel. It's like 20 euros, so that's like 20 Canadian or US dollars, roughly like 30 Canadian shekels here or whatever, something like that. It's like I have an entire suite of instruments, and I still bought his
Sure. Sure.
anyway. Like
That's
we
awesome.
built it out. We have a free version, but we built all the essentials, and he has a few of the nice little extras. It's like, yeah, I'm buying it for his extras,
Is
but
he up on the
he's
store?
got a bunch of other. Yeah, his the 414 panels are now on the store. They're payware. He's got other stuff coming out in the near future as well. He's got some for some steam gauge planes. He's going to have a DA62 complete cockpit for a DA62. He's got a longitude that's going to be coming out as well. So we're going to have the BizJet. Although he's probably going to have to rebuild a lot of that stuff because of the changes from AAU1 have changed a lot, and he built it for the former version.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's going to be a lot of stuff, and I think that Sim Innovations have realized that it's not their sim of choice because they're realism of flight model kinds of guys.
Right. Sure. I get
So
that though.
it's not their sim of choice when they're going to go flying, but they're realizing that that's where the money is.
I mean, I hope
And I
they
think it
do.
took them a while to realize it.
I hope they do, because if they're doing it, and it's funny that you brought that up, and because I was going to say something earlier, but I forgot, and that is for what they do and what they bring to it. And Sim Innovations, if you're hearing this, I'm not trying to come down on you, but I'm gonna be a little bit constructive criticism. I don't think they're getting the word out enough. I don't think they promote what they do to the Microsoft community. And when there are people out there that are still like, "What's Air Manager? How'd you do that?" I still get comments on videos. "Hey, what's going on that panel on the lower left? Where did you get that from?" And
Yeah.
I am now at a point 2 years into this with Microsoft 2020. Now, I answer, and I'm happy to answer. That's what the purpose of this channel is for. But I get a little surprised. I mean, it's like, and that's a super common thing. I'll do a video, don't have anything to do with Air Manager, but I'll do a screenshot of my setup, and somebody will always key in on what's that panel on the bottom, whatever doing, or what's on your iPad, or what's on your this, what's on your that. And so, I'll answer, and sometimes it'll be, it's Air Manager. And I see that on other people's videos too. On the flight
Yeah,
sim
I've had it on
setups
mine.
on forum, is it flight sim setups on
On Facebook. Yeah,
Facebook?
I've had it for some of my posts there where I post a picture of my cockpit. It's like, oh my God, those panels that you have, those screens with the instruments, like what is that?
And
And
that
then I
doesn't
point
make
them
any
to
sense to me. And so Sim Innovations, please get the word out, because the better they do, the better we do. The better, the more options I have, the more fun it is for me, and that they're going to, to do this. And
I agree.
I want them to do big. I want them to do well. I want them to make money. I want them to be able to make a living and put out really cool stuff, because that just benefits me. And like I said, I'm selfish about
I
this.
mean, between that and the Knobster, I mean, those two things, get Air Manager, a touchscreen, and a Knobster, you have, just like you said in your last video about the Logitech panels, that basically makes it obsolete.
It almost does.
Like
If you
all
don't
that
have them,
hardware,
yeah,
yeah,
if you don't have them,
it, it, it removes the purpose of buying such things.
I don't have it right handy, but that little FIPS panel, I noticed that they brought, when I did the
Yeah.
video, I hadn't looked at them in a while. I noticed they brought the price down to $120 from $170.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do a 6-pack, that's here, I'm gonna do math now. That's
$1,000.
$580, 500 and whatever, $620, right?
Yeah.
So that's just nuts.
Yeah, I guess now with the new price, yeah. So, but yeah, exactly. And you're still limited to these tiny little displays that, unless you go out and buy Spad Next,
Which is like 80 or
are
90
very
bucks, I
limited.
believe.
Yeah, they're limited. They're really low resolution. The graphics on them are kind of junky, if you ask me. Okay, when they first came out back in like 2006, this was like unheard of. This was amazing. The problem is that they've never iterated on this tech.
All right.
And when Logitech bought out SciTech, they just
They didn't retool. They
were
just
just
kept
going
the
to continue
same,
selling. They did nothing
updated the drivers.
because they
That was
had no
it.
competition at the time. They had no competition at the time. You either got a Logitech yoke and throttle quadrant and Logitech instruments, and that was it. You had no competition unless you went into these really niche builders that built high end cockpit stuff for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. That was your only option at the time. Nowadays, you buy your Honeycomb Alpha and Bravo. That Honeycomb, for a pair of those, costs less than buying the Logitech yoke, a single throttle quadrant, a switch panel, and an autopilot. It
Right.
costs less than that. It is of significantly higher quality, and other than not having the digital display for the autopilot, it does everything and more.
Right.
And I went from a Logitech yoke, and I would never touch one of those things ever again after using the Honeycomb, just like for the accuracy, the lack of any dead zone, the precise control you get. And Logitech had no
my honeycomb was my first.
competition at the time.
That was my first yoke. Is my and I had the Logitech throttle, a single.
Consider
one.
yourself yucky.
Now I've got a
That,
no, I know that's Thrustmaster. I was about to say I have a Logitech wheel for my. I do some Gran Turismo, but that's a Thrustmaster setup.
Yeah.
Holy crap! I've never had a.
Okay.
I've never had a Logitech really anything other than my keyboard's a Logitech.
keyboard and mice and stuff like that. I've had a lot of Logitech over the years.
But anyway, well, Joe, we're gonna have to definitely do this again. We'll just talk all night. But I'm gonna put
Sounds
in
good.
the comments or in the description. I'm gonna have Discord website. Please go out and support these guys. Join their Discord. Get involved. And Joe, I will see you again.
Sounds good.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
Thank you very much for having me.
No
You
problem.
too.
See you later.
Later.
All right. Well, that was awesome. I got to talk to Joe, and I've been looking forward to this, and I'm going to be doing more of these. So what I want to do is sign off and say goodnight. But do please support these guys. They work hard. It is time consuming. My little experience with coding is that it's time consuming, but they make a great product. And in any case, any questions, put them below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And if I can't answer them, I'll try to find out from somebody that can. In any case, you guys have a great night, and I'll see you later.